Welcome, everyone. This week on the Power Unit, I'm talking to Aoife Raftery. She's an Irish rally driver who, right now, is the only woman campaigning full international seasons on two different continents. Since started driving, which is about 5 years ago, she's podiumed on her first ever run in a four-wheel drive, made her Rally 3 debut with barely any testing, and become Ireland's first Rosemary Smith Trophy winner. We get into what it actually costs to run a season across two continents, what she got wrong in her first year in the US, and what she thinks is actually stopping more women from getting to being where she is. So here's Aoife. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to join you.
Thank you, Aoife. So let's get right into it. I mean, I've been researching you since I met you, and you mentioned, and I found this, that you're not just the only woman driver, you are literally the only driver having two campaigns across continents in the same season. How did that even come about? And like, how are you pulling it off?
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky to get the chance to compete in both this side of the water in Europe, UK, and Ireland, and then, of course, in America as well this year. Um, yeah, I suppose back to where it started, did my first rally driving myself in 2021 at a round of the British Rally Championship. And yeah, we continued that championship. We finished runner up, which was great for our first year. And yeah, in 2022, I got the opportunity to join what's called the Motorsport Ireland Rally Academy. And that's a program to help young drivers develop their skills and kind of get the opportunity to progress in the world of rallying. So, um, yeah, in 2022, we just focused on getting as much seat time as possible, driving in as many kind of one day small events in Ireland. Because for me, I started rather late in the sport. I was 20 years old when I started. So a lot of people are well experienced by the time they get to 20. So that year, we just focused on getting the experience. And then in 2023, we made our European Championship debut, which was a massive step in both my career, mentally, physically. Every aspect was a massive step. And I think it was the definition of jumping in the deep end and learning to swim. It really taught me a lot. It made me a better driver, made me a better person, and I think that I learned how to deal with teams and people a lot through it. And then in 2024, we returned for another season in the Junior European Championship, as well as doing some events in Ireland alongside that. And yeah, then 2025, we were at the Goodwood Festival of Speed that's held in the UK, and that was where then I got in touch with Dirtfish. And Dirtfish are a rally school based in Seattle. But they've also now launched their Dirtfish Women in Motorsport driver program alongside the summit that they run every year, which is a huge success. But
Yes.
yeah, Josie, remember we put a plan together towards the end of last year. Well, no, sorry, towards the end of 24 for 25. We put a plan together to compete in some ARA events. So the first two we did was in a Subaru four-wheel drive, and yeah, that was my first ever rally competing in four-wheel drive at the Olympus, and it was straight off the back of a European event in Spain, which was on tarmac. So from one week to the next, we went from tarmac to gravel, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and a completely new team and a new co-driver. So it was a massive challenge. But Josie and Dirtfish made me feel so welcome that it really helped with everything. And yeah, it was great. We had a great rally, great event, and we finished on the podium, and that led us to doing another one in the Subaru. And then towards the end of the year, we did Tennessee Rally in the Fiesta Rally 3 for the first time. And there we had our first podium in the overall results against, faster cars, which was really, really strong result. And we kind of used that and the momentum then to plan a full season in the ARA for this year. And it's just been incredible so far.
Nice. So I guess, as I told you, like I'm a Formula One fan, and the teams make money based on how they end up in the standings. Like, how does funding work for what you do, and how do you manage that across continents and across these two championships?
Yeah, of course. All motorsport, no matter what discipline, is always a struggle with trying to find the funding. Because if you go and play soccer, it's not too bad. You buy a pair of football boots and you buy a soccer ball, and then you can show your skill and your talent, and that will get you recognized up to the ranks. Whereas in rallying, it's so difficult. Like, we can train just as hard, work on our nutrition just as hard, mentally prepare as much as we can for every event, but it comes down to having the funds to go and to be able to test and be able to rally. So the biggest part outside of driving is working on trying to get partners on board and working to get sponsors on board. And it's probably the least enjoyable part of it, but it has to be done. So a lot
Right.
of time is spent putting proposals and packages together, trying to find the right contacts and the right companies that you think will align with what you're trying to do as a driver, and I suppose who you're trying to represent and at the level. So a lot of work goes in behind the scenes into putting those proposals together and reaching out to the right contacts. For 100 emails you send, you might get one reply, and it takes a lot, and it's a lot of hard work, and I think just keep pursuing it. So I've been very lucky. I started rallying. When I started with let's say, a relatively cheap car from motorsport, and I had some local
Right.
sponsors of mine. I'm from Galway in Ireland, and yeah, I had some great support just from small businesses around me. I reached out to them, and they kind of helped me get off the ground, and I did some rallies, and that, I suppose, the more I did, the more results I got. It helped me to build my profile and helped me then to approach bigger sponsors and bigger businesses. I mentioned earlier about getting into being selected as, I think, the first and only female driver so far in the Motorsport Ireland Rally Academy, and they were a great assist at the time, and I suppose preparing me not just for driving and all the other aspects, but yeah, they were great with support as well. Giving me I suppose, the opportunity to make my European debut, and that made a big difference for my career. And then, yeah, with the sport of dirtfish and, working alongside them to try and get new partners on board, it's a never ending, I suppose,
Yeah.
chase.
And I mean, that's only the half of it, right? Because there's driving, there's trying to fund the driving.
Yeah.
And, beyond that, what I read is you are mentoring Gemma Hamilton, who's the up and coming 16-year-old driver. You have had, you do talks with up, there was an audience of 8,000 girls at I Wish. You're a road safety ambassador. How? How do you manage your time? Because I think, whether you're a driver or you're in any other job, like time management is really critical. So how do you focus on like the driving bit or the fundraising bit or the mentoring bit? Like do you have a pattern or a key kind of guiding principles that you use to do some of that?
Yeah, of course. Look, I try and allocate so much time to certain aspects and certain elements of what's involved in the rallying, and sometimes, I suppose, depending on the time of year and what's happening in that, let's say, week or month for me, it
Mhm.
can very much depend on where I'm putting my focus and what I'm trying to work on. So, I'd say when I go to a rally, it takes the guts of a week between, like, from testing, from
Mhm.
recce, which is making my pace notes in the rally. So leading up to that week, I'll mostly be preparing for the event, watching onboards, reviewing the stages, making notes, and trying to kind of, I suppose, I know as the track drivers do, they learn tracks.
Mm.
We don't learn a full stage because there could be 15 to 20 stages in a weekend, and it's just not possible to remember every corner.
Yeah.
But we do, like, as drivers, we put a lot of homework into preparing to learn, I suppose, the style of stage, if it's fast, technical, the surface, seeing how other drivers take certain corners. So a lot of work is that. But then, yeah, I suppose in between that, like, tomorrow I go and I'm doing this talk, which, I'm really excited to, I suppose, share my experience in this industry, in this world. And it can vary. Sometimes I'm doing work with sponsors, which is, very, very happy to be able to kind of, I suppose, return something for their support. So we could be doing some videoing with them, some media. Uh, it really just depends on, I suppose, the time and what's happening in that. But yeah,
Mhm.
for let's say day by day, try and have a structure and a plan in place so that you're able to achieve as much as you can in that day,
Yeah.
without it going to waste.
Yeah.
Because
Like,
as
so
you said, it's so
yeah,
valuable.
what does a day look like when you're not, prepping for an event and, doing the recce or like driving or all of that? Like, say this week, right? Like before you actually head out, what does a day look like?
Yeah, so for me, I'm 20 past 6 in the evening now. So like for how let's say for example for how my day look today, get up, went for a run,
Mhm.
came back, was doing uh a lot of preparation for my talk tomorrow. So I was putting like my deck together for that, and I'm focusing on 3 different key points. So I did a lot of work and homework on that, and I just to have it right so that when I go there tomorrow, yeah, I'm able to confidently speak in front of the crowd that's going to be there.
Yeah.
Then after that, I had 3 calls, all related to rallying, and that takes a lot of time too because you're preparing for them, you're going through it, taking notes. Um, you know, 2 of those were about partnerships. One of them was about future rallies and events and trying to plan that.
Uh-huh.
After that, I was into one of my main sponsors, who are Carb Oil, based in Galway, in my home county. So
Uh-huh.
I went into one of their. They have shops, petrol stations, and shops all across the west and south of Ireland. So I went into one there today, and I was doing some filming and some um, photos, and just kind of, I suppose, getting some behind the scenes that I will use. Like I'll maybe put up a post tomorrow, but then again down the line in a 2 to 3 weeks, when I'm not like I won't be here for a long time once I leave on Monday, so I can use that content then again for the future when I'm not actually in country. So
Yeah.
it's quite useful for that as well. Then after that, I was actually just power washing some cars outside, and then I came in, did some preparation for this interview, and then yeah, so it can be quite variant some days on what I'm doing, but yeah, that's how today looked. So I'm very lucky that I'm able to put so much time into rallying. Um, on Monday, Tuesday of this week, sometimes I work on a building site, so I was actually on them for 2 days. So it's nice to come back and be able to clear the head.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're so involved and focused in the world of rallying, it can
Yeah.
consume you, which is natural, but it's nice to be able to take a step back, and it kind of clears your head and reset and refocus again then on what's needed to be done efficiently.
Yeah. And do you have a team that helps you with this, or is it all just you?
Uh, a lot of it is like a lot, for any driver, I think a lot of it is down to themselves and how much work they're willing to put in. So,
Okay.
of course, I have great support with, as I said, Josie, who runs the Dirtfish Women in Motorsport program.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And right now we're doing some, we were doing a call yesterday and we're organising the summit. So there's a lot of her time's going to that, but I'm also trying to help prepare for that as well, and trying to help out as much as I can on this side of the water. And yeah, that's going to be a really amazing event in August.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the audience, Aoife is talking about the Women in Motorsports Sports Summit that Dirtfish Rally School has in Snoqualmie, Washington. And it's coming up on not December, August 21st and 22nd. So if you're in the Seattle, Washington area, make sure you check it out.
Yeah, it's
So,
going to.
yeah. So moving on, Aoife, you were also the inaugural recipient of the Rosemary Smith Trophy. And, tell me what that means to you. What does her career mean to you and what you've learned from that?
Yeah, it was, being the first to win any trophy is always very, very special. So, to be presented with that from Motorsport Ireland was incredible, and yeah, I'm delighted to have my name on that trophy. And it meant a lot, as Rosemary Smith was a trailblazer in Irish motorsport and for women in motorsport. And yeah, she definitely had an incredible reputation here in Ireland, and yeah, it meant a lot to be recognised with such an award, and hopefully that I can leave the same kind of mark in rallying and motorsport as she did, and yeah, for future generations, it was a very, very nice and special award to win.
Okay, cool. Well, you did mention that, you kind of started late in this sport at 20 and you didn't kind of grow up wanting to drive. And you kind of found your way there from a sports injury, I believe. But, given your dad and brother were into racing, was that kind of a easy switch, or was there something else that you wanted to do, but then this kind of was more attractive? Can you tell us more about that?
Um, yeah, growing up, I always loved sports. I was always very competitive. And I think no matter what sport I was put into, as like from a young age, I loved it. Didn't matter what it was. But yeah, soccer was my big one, and we play a sport here in Ireland. The women's version is called camogie, and the men's version is called hurling. And
Okay.
it's with two. There's 15 players on each team, and we all have like wooden bats and a small leather ball that we use. And
Yeah.
it's actually the fastest field sport in the world, which is quite cool.
Oh,
But yeah, they were what I absolutely loved and put all my time into. Great team sports, and I actually had two surgeries on the one leg, with two different incidents, broken bone, dislocated knee and ankle, and it was quite a lot on the legs. So after the second surgery, I was told that if I go back playing, that there's a very high chance it's going to happen again. And I
oh,
had
yeah.
spent nearly, I'd say, I'd spent months and months and months on crutches. It was a
Yeah.
long time. I remember just being so fed up when I was like, that's it, no, because if it was such a high chance of happening again, I just
Yeah.
so yeah, I was actually in college. When I finished school and then I was in college, so I'd stopped for playing sport for a while, and I suppose I found that quite difficult not having something that I was so used to always having something to train for and work towards in that aspect.
Right.
And yeah, growing up, as you said, my dad and my brother, I was very, very lucky to have them in the sport. And I think I suppose I remember my brother a lot better going to his rallies, and I used to love going. Every chance I got, I was gone to a rally, and it wasn't that I was ever told I couldn't do it. I was always given, if in our house was if you wanted it, you could go and do it, but you had to want to go and do it.
Yeah.
And that was a great way because I was never pushed into the sport. I
Mm.
think just over time, I ended up co-driving first, in 2019 when I was 18, yeah, and I did a couple of events, and I was looking and watching the driver, and I think that was when I realized like this is definitely something that I could try. I think before that I never really recognized that it was some. I suppose the unknown, the uncertainty of it, that's what I didn't know. And as I'm so competitive, I would always want to have been
Yeah.
very good like that. And that's not the way it works. You have to be patient. But when I got the chance to co-drive, I understood it from inside the car, and yeah, that made it click for me, and I realized that I wanted to give this a go and try. But my very first rally I entered actually was postponed.
Oh.
The very first rally was postponed from COVID, and I didn't get to rally for another, I think, a year and a half after
Oh.
that, which I don't think you can make up because it was just, yeah.
Yeah.
But eventually I got going, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I mean, you have not just not looked back since you've like raced your way. Sorry for the fun. Uh, into like doing this across two continents. And the one question that came to mind for me is it like different sides driving in terms of like, the driver's side is on the left hand side versus right hand side when you're crossing continents, or do you still get to drive on the same side? Like, how does that look?
So what it's in Ireland, we drive right-hand drive, and in
Okay.
the UK, we drive right-hand drive. But in the rest of Europe, it's left-hand drive, and the US is left-hand drive.
Right, right,
So
right.
my first rally car for my first year was right-hand drive. And then after that, I realized, okay, if I want to go anywhere with this, I need to be in left-hand drive. So switched,
Ah,
same car, but we sold the right-hand drives, and then bought the same car and left-hand drive, and did 2 years in that.
okay.
And yeah, it was quite challenging at the beginning because your exact judgment on the road isn't the same. Like it's different. But then we ended up getting a left-hand drive everyday road car, and now I drive. I'm better driving as a left-hand drive rather than a right-hand drive on the road. But
Okay.
used to sports.
How does I always wondered, like, how does this translate into regular day driving? Like, if you're going to, meet friends and you have to drive that, like, how is that different from like rally?
It's not too bad as long as like I like being the driver. Yeah, definitely. You're always, I suppose, it makes you more aware of other drivers on the road and more responsive, and you're looking at a lot more kind of, I suppose, scenarios
Yeah,
from other people and other cars on the road, and um, yeah, sometimes you just I think you know it's nothing too crazy because in rallying, like we drive on the road in between the stages, so we
yeah,
naturally switch back and forth very quick in
I
that
see.
mentality.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And so it's not just the left-hand drive and the right-hand drive, but you've podiumed at Olympus for the very first time in a four-wheel drive. And then, if I read this right, you did a race on tarmac, and then you went and did one on gravel. Like, how do you adjust to that? Like all these different varying factors.
Yeah, it was it was a challenge. We that one you mentioned from tarmac to gravel, that was the one that we did the European Rally
Uh-huh.
Championship round in Spain on
Yeah.
tarmac in the front wheel drive, and those events are the most intense rallies that I have ever done in that championship because the level is so high. The competition is incredible, but there's a lot of stage miles,
Um,
and just the complete concentration and focus you have to have for that whole week. Um, and then we finished that. I finished the rally Sunday evening. I fly back to Dublin Sunday night,
uh,
and I'm flying from Dublin to Seattle on the Monday.
oh
For my
wow.
next rally in America
Yeah.
um, on gravel, and new car, as I said, new team. It was a big challenge. The time difference alone was a big challenge. I wasn't used to that my first time, so that was probably the hardest part. Was getting adjusted. But yeah, no, we were so lucky that we got the chance to go and do it. Like it was incredible to go and rally 4-wheel drive. It was a big step up in terms of the power in the car that I had been driving previous, so it was a lot. But I got a test, which helped massively in terms of learning the car and what it could do. Um, but yeah, it's a big challenge, but at the same time, once you're thrown into something and the adrenaline is going,
Yeah.
you get through it in full focus, and then afterwards, it's a
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, you're just kind of getting started, but 5 years out, like where do you see yourself? What more do you want to do? Like, what's a goal for you 5 years from now?
yeah, of course. Always like when I started and even to now, it's always to progress. So my goal would always be to get to the top of anything, and that's to get to the top level in the sport. And I think alongside the Dirtfish Win program, they've the same drive that I have and same goals, and there's two there: is to get to the top level of the sport and finally have another woman in there since Michelle Mouton, who's an absolute legend. Um, yeah, you know, it's been so long since somebody has done what she's done and gotten even the opportunity to get back into that top level of WRC. So there's that, and then there's also the side of trying to, represent women at these events and these rallies, but not just to show up and be there, but to show up and show that we can win,
Yeah.
show that we're able to do it. And that's the unique thing about our sport is you're racing the stopwatch, you're not racing, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, it's just against the stopwatch. And I think that's the most special part of it. And when I go to the summit or when I go to events and I see young girls coming up, it's always very special to meet them and see how excited they are. And hopefully, yeah, if we can continue to build that, representation and encourage more and more young women to get involved in the sport, we'll see hopefully then in the future more at the top end, and the highest levels of the sport.
Yeah. Um, and so, for someone listening to this episode who's interested in either becoming a rally driver or being part of the sport in some way, is there any specific advice, like something that worked for you that you would give them?
I always think, if you want something badly enough, you'll work hard enough for it. And I think hard work and determination is a massive one.
Hmm.
If it's something that you really, really want to go after or be part of, whether it is driving or co-driving, mechanic,
Yeah.
of course, looking from the outside in, it might be kind of a scary world to see and try to get involved in. But once you start to talk to people that are already involved in the sport, making some connections, you start to realize that it's like one big community and one big family, and everyone will always try and help. Anybody try and come along to events, teach them, help them understand the sport a bit better. And yeah, I think once you kind of take that first step to get to knowing people in the sport and making that community, everything else comes a bit easier. And the the further you get in, the harder you have to work. So that's part of it too.
Yeah, that is definitely part of it. Well, you heard it from Aoife. If you want to be part of rally racing, what you have to do is get out there, find the people that are doing this, go to the events where people are talking about the things you're interested in, and that's really the starting point. Well, that's Aoife for you. You can catch her on both sides of the Atlantic, and I'll put her socials in the show notes as well. Thanks for listening to the Power Unit. If you like this one and you think it is going to help somebody, please share it with them, and I'll see you at the next episode.